All right.
To the Lions Roar.
Hey, you got it right that time. Welcome to episode 2 of the Lions Roar. So, I'm Jim. That's Eric. No, that's Jim. I'm Eric. Last weekend we played against the Burning River Buckets and the Louisville Pros, so we thought we'd talk a little bit about those games and our upcoming game against the Indiana Lyons. So, Jim, what observations did you have from the Buckets game?
From the Buckets game, the Burning River Buckets are a class act team.
Yeah.
I believe that the guys on this year's team got the brunt of all the hostility that the Lions had held since the championship that never was.
Yeah.
And so we were kind of surprised that their roster was not what we thought it was going to be.
Yeah,
we thought we'd have a lot of the guys that were supposed to play in the championship game.
Yeah, they were missing, half a dozen of their veterans from last season.
Probably.
There were maybe 2 or 3 veterans that I recognized from last season that came back for this game, but it just wasn't the same. And the Lions definitely came out with hostile feelings from getting the championship game stolen from them.
They wanted to make a statement, and they did.
Yeah,
big time.
So I was like you. You mentioned in the game video, Jim, that you thought the Buckets played well, and I thought they did too. It's just our guys were on a different plane.
Lights out.
Yeah.
Shooting lights out. Yeah.
Yeah. If you've looked at the stats leaders from that game, I mean, we had 5 guys that those were just 5 out of the 12, 13 who played that had some amazing stats. Everybody contributed in that one, and it was just a stellar day all the way around for the Lions. And really, I don't know that there was anything the Buckets could do differently.
No, it was, had a lot of everybody got to contribute on that one. I would say as we said in the game film, that the majority of the Lions players were on that championship team.
Right. And
the 2 guys that were not knew what the weight of the game meant.
Sure. And they were there.
Yeah.
They were there. Yeah.
So now they can put that to rest.
Yeah.
And feel much better.
Yeah.
Although you still have the lingering wonder of how the actual championship game would have gone if you had the two teams.
Sure.
However, they played each other.
Yep.
One team came out victorious.
Yep.
Wasn't close. And the Lions start a new season with one big win, and then followed up with another big win the next day.
Yeah. Now, the one thing I don't want to take away from the Buckets is that they are indeed 22-23 ABA champions, just like we are.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's any bitterness about that. The bitterness comes from not being able to play that game. So we've covered that topic ad nauseum. So let's talk about the Pros game. The Pros game was a little bit different than the Buckets game.
Let's sum it up by saying it was chippy.
Yes.
A little chippy.
So Louisville committed 32 fouls in that game. We committed 14. And I would have to say most of Louisville's fouls were deliberate.
Yeah. A lot of the Lions players came out with bruises after that one, and it was really unnecessary.
Yeah. I'm sure you've seen in the game film where I lost what little patience I had left. I was already tired from being up the night before, working on the Buckets video, and then when Louisville started utilizing that strategy, and I use that term loosely, to try to get under our skins, it really got on my nerves. What's-his-face throws it into Jones.
Okay. You're not even going to give him the honor of saying his name.
Nope. He wants to be seen. He's not going to be heard.
23 is...
I don't know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
And isn't the possession arrow of the Lions?
It is going to stay with the Lions.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's-his-face was all happy about, but whatever.
Well, he got the tie up. But
oh, okay. Yay,
you know, I've had smaller victories.
Sure, yeah.
Eric Messer for
How about
three.
that? What's your face? Eric Messer buries the 3.
23.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. That guy.
Yeah. Gets at least his 4th foul.
Domo Arigato, Mr. Roboto.
To go along with a couple dozen misdemeanors and possibly 2 felonies in this game. And just to... You know what, buddy? Just get in the car and go home. I don't like when another team isn't playing basketball. I mean, fouls happen, I get it. Physicality happens, I get it. But Kendall Jones, he played a very physical game, but he only had 2 fouls.
Yeah.
And he played a good game. I think we mentioned it in the broadcast. Billups played a good game. He had a minimal number of fouls. I don't recall off the top of my head, but Jones was the one I was curious about because he was probably the most physical guy. He was the biggest framed guy on their team. And so, of course, there's some, the bigger guys play with physicality. That's part of their role. But Jones did it without the nonsense fouls. It was 2 or 3 of the smaller pros that just went out of their way to commit fouls. So one in particular, 25, I think his last name was White.
You knew why he was in the game.
Yeah, I mean, he was in, I think, for one stretch of less than a minute and picked up 2 fouls. So, and the one time he shot, he missed the entire basket by feet.
Yeah.
So, I don't like that kind of game. I don't like flopping. I don't like
grabbing.
Yeah.
There's a big difference between reaching. When you're reaching, you're going for the ball. When you're grabbing, you're trying to hold somebody up, and it's much different.
And you can get somebody hurt. I mean, some of the fouls were so aggressive. Egregious. There we go.
Egregious. Malicious.
I remember one foul committed against Cam where the guy, I don't remember which player did it, but grabbed Cam's waist and kind of spun him around. If Cam plants his foot wrong, that's a knee or an ankle or something that it could seriously hurt somebody. So I just didn't like that strategy that they deployed, and I lost all respect for that team, which is a shame because there are some guys on that team who play really good basketball and they play it the right way. It's just a handful of those guys did not. I also didn't like the taunting of our bench by one of their players. Every time he would hit a 3-pointer, he'd run past our bench, excessively celebrating and taunting our guys.
Well, that's why you show them the scoreboard.
Right.
But that's kind of part of the game. He was trying to get in people's heads, but the Lions weren't having any part of it.
No, I think the Lions did a great job of keeping their composure.
Yeah. Of course, there are a couple Lions players that have their three-point celebration too. It's
not directed at anybody.
Well, no, it's not, and that's true. Yeah, I know Mike Pugh and Eric Messer both have kind of a 3-point celebration.
Sure.
That they go off on, but it's not malicious toward the other team.
Right. Jordan's got one. Donnell's got one. Other guys have them, but yeah, it's something they do individually for just a second to commemorate or celebrate in a particular way. What the pros player did, and fans who weren't at the game may not have been able to tell because my daughter Natalie did a great job of keeping the camera off of him while he was doing this during the game. But he'd run past our bench, all the length of our bench, with his arms out wide and making faces and probably talking to him as he ran by. And
I'm sure.
That's just...
That's where you get them on the court. That kind of stuff is going to happen. You get the cocky guys that are, going to show off a lot. But, you prove it by winning the game.
Yep.
It doesn't matter if you hit a three. You got to hit a bunch of them to win the game.
The funny thing is about that player who was excessively celebrating, he was 6 for 12 from 3-point range, which that's 50%. That's
clock's right twice a day.
Yeah.
Broken clock's right twice a day.
Right. But total for the game, he was 6 for 14 from the field. So he missed both of his two-point attempts, and he had virtually no defensive stats because he didn't play defense. So,
aside from fouls.
Right. Yes.
So you're saying that he was mediocre at best.
Yes.
And you might be over-celebrating for what you're doing in the game there, buddy.
Yes.
Okay.
Not to mention the fact that he fouled out, stayed in the game, and scored 4 more points. But
according to the new rules,
yes, he should have fouled out on his 7th foul, which was a technical foul, of course, and that should have been the end of his day. But for whatever reason, he continued to play. Scored 4 more, but it didn't make a difference at that point. The pros were out of gas. Our guys had a point to make with them, and they did, and we won by 21. So 2-0 on the season. As you know, the Round Lake Bobcats suffered a terrible personal tragedy involving a family member of the Bobcats owner, and so they have very understandably ceased operations for the season. We send our deepest sympathies and prayers to the Delaney family and to the entire Bobcats organization. That is, we wouldn't wish that on anybody. That's terrible, and our thoughts are with you. So we will not be traveling up there on Sunday. So our one game this week is Saturday against the Indiana Legends. And Jim, we saw them in the preseason. Mm-hmm. Of course, it was their first preseason game, and I think it was aside from the first responders game, I think it was our second preseason game.
Yeah, it may have been. Everybody was really rusty.
Yeah.
Probably a little more out of shape than what they are now.
Yeah.
And they were a brand new team as well. Right.
And you may have been trying players out there no longer on the roster or something. So, we got a sense of who they probably are, but how does that translate from, in essence, the first preseason game for both of us to regular season? Just don't know.
Well, you don't know. You probably saw a lot of what they wish to accomplish as far as the defense, who's probably going to play, what kind of minutes people are going to play. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure they've changed some things up after they made it through the rest of the preseason, and I don't know if they've had a regular season game yet.
They have not. They were on a bye in the first week. Clarksville, Phoenix were on a bye in the first week. Everybody else in our division, at least in the red division, played at least one game, and we're the only team that played 2. So,
okay.
They're 0-0.
So we'll see. We don't know what their practice schedule is like, and every team grows throughout the season and gets better, and meshes. Some teams mesh better than others. Mm-hmm. But we'll see. That's why they play the game.
Yeah, they do have some very good players for their team. There were a few of them that stood out in the preseason game for a variety of reasons, whether it's points or rebounds or other things. So we have a pretty good idea of who their probably top 3 or 4 players are. But it's a long game, and 4 guys can't play 48. Well, St. Louis did, but usually
that's true.
Usually you need more than 4 to go 48 minutes and do something with that. So.
Of course, if you take a metropolitan area and have a minimum of 3 teams and get the best of the best from those 3 teams, you can probably get 5 guys that can do 48 minutes.
That's true. That's true.
So there's a benefit to owning your own team and owning multiple teams.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say about that.
Looking forward to seeing, Cam's going to do his thing, I'm sure, this weekend. He had 2 great games last weekend. Eric Messer's really taken on an expanded role. He had a double-double against the Buckets, and he had another great statistical day against the pros. So Eric is one who is kind of taking on a bigger role. Phil Bessick is taking on a bigger role.
Yeah.
I think he was on the leaderboard for the pros game. Lazarick Cheatham's had a great game against the pros. He had double-digit rebounds, and he came within a bucket of having a double-double on Sunday. So, we've got depth.
Do have depth.
Really nice.
I think any one of those 12 guys that are on that bench at any given game can fill the role that they need to fill. Sometimes you go with a shorter lineup, sometimes you need a taller lineup, sometimes you need your 3-point shooters. And you had had some big shoes to fill, literally and figuratively, when Leon retired. Leon retired after last year.
And with T being gone also.
T being gone as well. As far as the rebounding goes, Lazarick Cheatham's has really stepped up, and Phil has stepped up as well on the inside. I think all those guys are filling in roles that they may not have expected to fill in, but they're doing it quite nicely. It's not anything that they are not able to do. I don't want to call Jordan Heidelberg out, but I'm still waiting for him to get on a roll. He's kind of been off to a slow start this season, and
he has. He's struggled to find his groove, and I gotta wonder. Believe it or not, Jim and I are both former athletes. Back in the dinosaur days, we were in
the rock hurling competitions.
We'd ride our brontosauruses to school and compete. So I know how in sports, when you get off to a slow start, it can really put a damper on your confidence, and then you start getting tight, and it doesn't matter what sport you're playing. If it's baseball or softball, you can't suddenly hit a ball. If it's football, you suddenly can't complete a pass. Basketball, suddenly you can't hit shots.
You lose your confidence.
Right. Tennis, everything goes into the net. So I guess if Jordan cares about a fat old man's advice, I would just suggest, just relax, buddy. Don't carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. You'll work through it. You're a super talented athlete, and slumps happen, and you're going to come out of it and be white hot at some point. So keep at it, Jordan. Don't lose your hope. Don't lose your confidence, and don't feel like you got to carry the world on your shoulders, because, as Jim and I were just talking about, we got a lot of depth.
And 4 other guys on the floor at any given time that can do the shooting, but they still need a general to get the ball where it needs to go.
Right. Yep. So we love you 3. Keep it up, man. So Saturday's game, doors open at 4. Tip-off is at 5. Active military and veterans, thank you so much for your service. It says it's Veterans Day on Saturday. We'd like to invite all of you in the active military or military veteran status to come to the game for free and spend a couple hours with us. Have some fun. We'll see you there, Lions Pride. I'm Eric. That's Jim. And we'll see you next week.
Happy Veterans Day.